Welcome to the Alabama Estate Planning Podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome into an all-new episode of the Alabama Estate Planning Podcast with attorney Harlan Mitchell. I am your host, Mike Leon. Harlan here is the founder of the Bama Estate Planning by Harlan D. Mitchell Legal Services. He's an Alabama native with decades of experience helping families protect their assets, avoid unnecessary conflict, and prepare for life's unpredictable moments through thoughtful estate, elder law, long-term care planning. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the differences between wills and trust in the state of Alabama. Harlan's going to explain it all and break it all down for us. Harlan, it's good to see you as always. Let me start with a high-level 30,000-foot overview here. So an Alabama family comes into your office. You want to help them start to understand the differences between a will and a trust. What do you explain to them on those key differences?
Well, thank you for having me, Mike. One of the first things I do is I start out with the probate process, and that if you have a will, it's going to have to be probated. And when we probate it, somebody's going to have to file for letters of testamentary, a personal representative. And once they get the letters, they has to run in the newspaper for 3 consecutive weeks. And the state will then remain open for 6 months until such time as creditors have filed all their claims. Once the claims have resolved, you can file to have the estate closed. And once that happens, everybody gets distributed their funds and their share of their inheritance according to the terms of the will. And that's normally a 7 to 12 month period of waiting on creditors and available court dates and everything, those type things. With a trust, the successor trustee can step right in and take care of whatever business matters need to be handled, family matters need to be handled. There's no communication with the court. It's just step in and continue on as you're going. And it's especially important if you have a child who needs special assistance, special needs, to get that trust set up and have the special needs trust funded for that child. It just makes life so much simpler for everybody.
Yeah. Well, we talked a little bit in a previous episode about a will and probate. I want to dive into each one specifically. So let's go back to will for a second. So what does it control? What doesn't it control? Take people through like what the probate process actually involves end to end with respect to a will in Alabama. And then we'll go into trust.
Well, once you get the will, like was discussed, the personal representative named in the will will have to meet with an attorney, file a petition for letters of of testamentary, and then once that's granted, there's an ad that has to be run notifying all creditors that this estate is being probated and you have 6 months to file your claim. At that point in time, if something needs to be sold, if the will gave you authority to sell it, you may sell it, but the funds normally have to be held in trust until such time as the estate closes, because the court's going to make sure that there are funds to pay all the claims that are submitted, unless the claim is disputed and you win that dispute. So that whole process is going to take approximately 7 to 12 months from the time you meet with an attorney till you close the estate.
So Harlan, on the trust part of this, so is my understanding that the biggest difference is that it just avoids probate entirely and it keeps the matters private for the family. Is that it? And what else with respect to the trust and funding the trust?
You want to fund the trust as soon as possible after it's created. And we give you specific instructions on what to do about setting up a trust bank account. Try to move your real property into the trust. We tell you what not to put in the trust. We have a whole trust package that includes a pour over will, which anything that you trade, personal property that you get that's not titled or named in anything, will pour back into the trust at your passing to be distributed as you set out in the trust. The the main thing is the trust is private. It's not public. Wills are public record. Once they get probated, they're public. The trust is private, and the trust allows everything to move on and avoid probate, and especially all the fees and costs associated with probate and the will.
Harlan, when you meet with these families and you're kind of breaking this down and explaining the differences between, a will-based plan versus a trust-based plan, what have you seen them say in terms of what tends to matter the most, especially when it comes to control, timing, protecting some of the assets? Where have you seen families differ on that front?
Well, some people just take the attitude, I'm not going to be here, I don't care. There's others who are very particular that they want a legacy left for their children, and they want a trust set up that will take care of their children, their grandchildren. And one of the big things we do is special needs trust. We have so many people that have a child, for whatever reason, needs someone to manage their money and make sure they're well cared for the remainder of their life.
Yeah.
And that tends to be what we see a lot of. And there's times I tell people, based on your situation, a will is what you should have. And other folks I recommend a trust to because of some complex legal issues, complex distributions that you really don't want the court involved in,
Yeah.
because you're opening yourself up to a will contest. And people do contest trust, but they're a little more difficult to do so.
Let me ask you, because you mentioned children. So, can you kind of explain how the wills and trusts differ when it comes to minor children being involved? Especially, you mentioned obviously the special needs part, but like guardianship, protecting inheritance. Can you kind of explain the differences between the two there?
Well, what the will is the proper form in Alabama under Alabama Code 262A71A, I believe, is that the will is the proper place to name a guardian for your children. But what we're doing is we name it in the trust, we name it in the will as well, and we do it a separate will just for the appointment of the guardian, so that all the person appointed guardian has to do is file that with the probate court, and that they have priority then, and then they take the court normally just awards them the guardianship.
Harlan, your years of experience doing this, can you share some examples where you saw a will really benefit a family versus a trust really benefit a family and do some things that a will couldn't do? You have some examples you can share?
I've had several that the will was all they needed because it was a simple matter of the family was needing to transfer the the, the surviving parent's house, and that's all that needed to be done. And they didn't want to spend the money to do proactive planning when that was the only asset. Uh, Other times I've seen people that we do a trust for, they have this one, they had a special needs daughter who needed specialized care. And because it was set up and the trustee was appointed, we were able to go right in. The trustee was able to take over, go right in, and begin to provide a continuing care for that special needs daughter.
Yeah.
Whereas they didn't have to go through probate and wait for approval to spend a check.
It's very, very, very timely information for folks out there, especially with all the changes and regulations. Let me ask you, Harlan, as we put a bow on today's episode, for maybe someone that's listening to this and they're still a little unsure which option kind of fits their situation, what would you want them to consider as they think about this long-term protection for their family?
I think when you start thinking about a will or trust, you want to think about what happens to your family on the hardest day of their life. Do you want them tied up in court in a public hearing, or do you want them to follow a clear, concise plan that you've crafted?
When you lay it out like that, I think the option's very simple. Harlan, thank you so much for the time, the insights. I appreciate it as always.
Thank you for having me, Mike. Good to see you again.
And that's it for today's episode of the Alabama Estate Planning Podcast. If you want to learn more or you just want to connect with Harlan and the team over at Bama Estate Planning, do me a favor right now. Visit BamaEstatePlanning.com. You're going to find all the resources there to help not only you, but protect your family, your assets, and give you that peace of mind. Thank you again for listening. But before you go, do me a favor, hit like, subscribe, leave a review, comment, share the episode with someone who needs to hear it. As always, I am Mike Leon. We will see everybody next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.